Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 501 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, not really asked you to agree with me, I'm asked you to hear me out. When you're someone like the Golden State Warriors, and you essentially let Klay Thompson leave, that signifies a change in the direction of the organization. You see, it's not just because Klay Thompson is one of the best shooters of all time. It's not just because Klay Thompson has game left in his life. But when you look at the legacy that someone like Klay Thompson left in Golden State, that is the end of an era. We don't call it the Splash Brother. We don't call it the Splash Steph, or it's not the Splash Klay. It's the Splash Brothers. The things that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson did together, in my opinion, will never be replicated. I don't think we will ever see a period where one team has two shooters on the same level that we saw Steph and Klay, especially at the same time. So when you let someone like that go, that has a legacy, that has helped get, 4 championships, that spells a change in the organization. Now, I'm not saying that the change is automatically negative. I'm not saying that you're going from great to terrible. But a change all the same. So when Golden State brings in someone like Buddy Hield, you hope that, while no, Buddy Hield is not the same person as Klay Thompson. Buddy Hield will never be regarded as on the same level, career-wise, legacy-wise. He will never be considered as important or considered on the same level as Klay Thompson. And honestly, when you make not make a trade, but when you let someone like Klay Thompson walk and you bring in someone like Buddy Hield, I think it's expected to know that Klay Thompson built his own legacy. Buddy Hield's different. Buddy Hield, you have an opportunity. You're going to be incredibly important for this team because if you look at the construction of the roster, there's not many people that can do, or there's not many people on this roster that is projected to do what Buddy Hield can do. And I'm not going to lie. It was a roller coaster ride of a Buddy Hield experience for the Golden State Warriors this season. From him, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the start of the year, this man was arguably the greatest shooter of all time. I think he was shooting at like a 50 to 60% clip from three and shooting like 5 or 6 threes a game. Now, we knew that was going to come down to earth. We knew that was just unsustainable, especially for someone like Buddy Hield. In fact, Steph Curry, as great as he is, I don't think he will ever do something like that for an entirety of a season. But when I say that it's been a roller coaster ride with Buddy Hield, that is an understatement. You go from arguably being one of the best shooters in the league, arguably being, early front runner for Sixth Man of the Year. I'm not going to say forget about Klay Thompson, but you allow people to realize, oh, okay, that's why they brought you in, and it was okay to let someone like Klay Thompson walk. It was looking pretty good. Golden State was looking like one of the best teams in basketball. And then the water found its level. And Jesus, you started to understand why it's been sort of difficult for Buddy Hield to find a landing spot. a consistent landing spot in the league. I mean, you've been the Kings, you were in Indiana, like you were on the Pelicans. You can tell, and I'm not saying this to crap on Buddy Hield, but it is honest. When you when your game is so inconsistent, it's very hard to have staying power. Not just because your game is inconsistent, but when Buddy Hield is playing at his best, he is one of the best shooters in basketball. He is a very important piece for any team. So and on top of that, teams invest a lot of money in Buddy Hield because they feel that he is going to be integral for the team. But when you get games like, when you get stretches like he was in the beginning of the year, and he was playing like one of the best shooting guards in the league, and then you go into the middle of the year where he's virtually damn near unplayable, it's very hard to commit to a player like that, no matter how high his ceiling can be. And if we're being quite honest, Game 7 of the first round of the playoffs against the Houston Rockets, we saw Buddy Hield's ceiling. Yes, Buddy Hield has had games where he scored more points or had more assists or he'd had louder points. But the reason why Golden State felt okay to a certain extent with letting someone like Klay Thompson leave and bringing someone like Buddy Hield is because of the potential that you could get from Buddy Hield that we saw in Game 7 of the first round. It wasn't the best of series for Buddy Hield, no. But at this point of the season, you know what you're getting. You know what you possibly could get from him and what you possibly could not. I'll say this. Since acquiring Jimmy Butler, Golden State has not looked like a 7 seed, which they're currently at. They've looked like a more cohesive team. They've been much better defensively. Steph Curry's been better because, teams can't essentially double him and single guard. Like Jimmy Butler's presence has been a godsend for a lot of people on the Golden State Warriors. And I don't know what the hell's going on with Jonathan Kuminga and Steve Kerr, but for some reason, Jonathan Kuminga just can't get regular minutes, even when he's important. I don't know how different the series would have been. I don't know if Golden State was up 3-1. I don't know if Golden State would have won in 5. I don't know 6. I don't know if they would have lost. But I do know that when you're playing a team as physically daunting as the Houston Rockets is, and you're already a smaller team, you want as many taller pieces as you can get, which is why I was shocked. Which is why I was shocked that someone like Trace Jackson Davis didn't play, or someone like Jonathan Kuminga barely can get minutes. It was crazy to me. But I say all that to say this. You don't expect to get 33 points from Buddy Hield every game. You don't expect Buddy Hield to tie a NBA record for most 3-pointers in a Game 7. You don't expect that every single game. But I will say this. If you get the you're not going to expect Buddy Hield to hit 9 threes a game. But if you get, okay, maybe we can hit 5. You know what it is? 2022, when Golden State beat the Boston Celtics in the championship. Steph Curry was the best player. Steph Curry was the biggest reason, the main reason why Golden State won his fourth and Golden State's champion. Whoa, words. Steph Curry was the main reason why Golden State won that championship. But let's not get it twisted. Andrew Wiggins was probably 1B as to why Golden State secured that championship. If Andrew Wiggins doesn't emerge as the clear-cut second best player for that playoff run, I don't think Golden State not only makes it to the championship and ultimately wins it, they may not even make it to the finals. Andrew Wiggins was huge against someone like Luka Doncic in the Dallas Mavericks. Andrew Wiggins was huge against someone like the Memphis Grizzlies. His emergence, somebody that you may not have expected to rise up, but was important all the same, was the reason why Golden State won that championship. Now, Buddy Hield is not Andrew Wiggins. At least that version of Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins' defense was probably much more important because he had to go up against some heavy hitters, was probably much more important than his offense. But when you look at this scenario, I think the key to this championship run or to a long run, because I'll give my predictions in a little bit between what happens between Minnesota and Minnesota and Golden State. If they get a consistent Buddy Hield maybe hit 3-4 threes a game, limit the turnovers. While we know Buddy Hield has never been a defender, but at least try a better help defense. This Golden State team is much more potent because now it takes some of the offensive onus off of Steph Curry. Which, by the way, a lot of those threes that Buddy Hield made was in direct correlation to how the Rockets were guarding Steph Curry, which is why Steph Curry couldn't get off in the first half. He went into halftime with 3 points because it was essentially a box and one. It doesn't matter where the ball was, your defender is on you. That's how it was with Steph. So if you're able to knock down those shots, it takes some of the pressure off of Steph Curry to make shots. It takes some of the pressure off of Jimmy Butler to make shots. It opens the door for someone like Pods. It opens the door for someone like, Kuminga if he plays. The key to a deep playoff run for Golden State isn't Steph Curry, isn't Jimmy Butler. It is how consistent is Buddy Hield going to be? Because that is the dynamic that a lot of teams cannot answer for. Now, it's not expected because I don't remember the last time we seen a consistently good Buddy Hield was probably in Sacramento. But I'm just saying, this is me acknowledging that he was probably the biggest reason, even though Steph Curry was incredible, especially the second half. And even with him having 3 points, he was great at not turning the ball over because he's been terrible. He was terrible that series in turning the ball. I think he was third in the playoffs in turnovers with like 3 a game or something. But if Buddy Hield is this consistent, I can very well see Golden State moving forward. I'm interested to see how the matchups are with Golden State against the Timberwolves because outside of Timberwolves is a much better offensive team than the Rockets, but both of those teams are very similar. So I think that both of those teams will guard Golden State very similar. And I think Golden State has some similar advantages compared to disadvantages. So I'm interested to see. I'm probably going to go with the Timberwolves, but we'll see. Speaking of we'll see, I want to talk about the Rockets really quick before we move on. One thing that we know, whether fair or unfair, one thing that we are 100% clear on is stars are critiqued differently than regular players. If you or your team consider you a star, you're going to get critiqued differently. Whenever the Lakers lose, the first thing they talk about is LeBron. Whenever Denver loses, the first thing they talk about is Jokic. The Bucks, we talked about the Bucks losing last episode. We talked about Giannis and Dame. When you're a star, when you're a superstar, you've played yourself to a realm that is stricter when it comes to criticism. There's a reason why when we're hearing about this Rockets team and what happened, because remember, the Rockets were the second seed in the West. They lost Game 7 at home. There's a reason why when we're hearing, when people are trying to figure out what happened to the Houston Rockets, how they lost to a 7 seed, Jalen Green's name is repeatedly brought up. And rightfully so. And again, stars are critiqued differently than regular players. Now, am I saying that Jalen Green is a star? Probably not. I think that he's a good player. I think that he has a promising future. I think that he's still very young, so he could obviously grow into becoming a star. But at this very moment, I don't think he is a star. However, the Houston Rockets don't share my same sentiment. The Houston Rockets paid him like he is a star. He has star-like qualities. While they may be small, he has star-like qualities. He can erupt and go crazy when it comes to scoring. When he is on, he's one of the best scorers in basketball. And people like, what? Yo, go look it up. Jalen Green is a human torch if I've ever seen one. The Rockets paid him like he is a star. So when they pay you, that's another thing in basketball that you don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about how a team views you, because you can just tell one clear indicator of how a team views you and how important a team thinks you are is the contract that they give you. They just don't give out max extensions to everybody. So when Jalen Green gets one, it's like, oh, they're showing you, oh, they believe that Jalen Green is that guy. Especially with I know you just played Fred VanVleet, but he's older than Jalen Green, and he hasn't shown the consistency to be the guy on a team, even though he did have a phenomenal series against Golden State. He's an NBA champion. In fact, he's the only point guard, I believe, that has a winning record against Steph Curry in the playoffs. So there's that. But Jalen Green. The Rockets view you as their star. The Rockets view you as the star of the future. The Rockets view you as essentially their piece. Meaning, you can't have one game in the series where you score, I think, 38 points, 33 or 38 points. And then every other game in the series, you don't even crack double digits. Because imagine if that happened with Golden State. Steph Curry in Game 7 went until halftime with 3 points. Imagine if they would have lost and he finished with 3 points. They would massacre. The same Steph Curry that has 4 championships, widely considered the greatest shooter ever, they would massacre Steph Curry in the media. I understand that the Houston Rockets have struggled all year when it comes to consistently scoring the ball. They don't really have much as far as off half court scoring. Their superpower is going in fast break. They played really great defense. They're one of the best defense. They turned themselves into one of the best defensive teams in the playoffs, in the NBA. Honestly, shout out to Ime Udoka. So I'm not solely saying that it's on Jalen Green's fault, but what I'm saying is when you're tasked an assignment, Jalen Green's assignment is, just be the star that we need you to be. Because you see Alfred Şengün, he's going crazy. He didn't have a good Game 7, but he's going crazy. I understand that he has a height differential, advantage, but he's going crazy. Steven Adams is showing you how important he is to a team and how they better hope that they can keep him. I know that he's going to be a free agent, but Steven Adams can be a championship piece to a team. But the biggest indictment on Jalen Green should honestly be the talks that we're hearing after this series. Because all that I'm hearing is, what do the Rockets need? They need a go-to scorer. They need to go out and get someone like a Kevin Durant. They need to go out and get someone like a Devin Booker. They need to go out and get someone like a Giannis. No, I'm not saying that Jalen Green should be considered on the same level as KD and Giannis and Devin Booker, but the Rockets viewed you as their number one option. The Rockets viewed you as their star. And you didn't deliver. It goes back to consistency. I just talked about Buddy Hield's consistency. There should be no reason why in a Game 7 at home, the literally the most important game of your life up to this point, Amin Thompson, who is a phenomenal player, him and his brother Asar are incredibly great players. But there should be no reason why a rookie, might I add, who's looked at primarily for his defense, is the only player that's consistent on the offensive side of the ball that game. And on top of that, he's really the only player that looks like they aren't shell shock of the moment. I understand that not many of the people on the Rockets played in Game 7. And I get that it's a different level of intensity. If you've never played in the Game 7, you don't know the intensity. So I clearly don't know the intensity. But I do know this. Stars are critiqued differently. And the Rockets view Jalen Green as a star. You can't leave the game. You can't leave the game with the same amount of points that your teammate Dillon Brooks left with. That's 8 points. So what I'm saying is, I get a bad game. I get it. Everyone has a bad game. I get it. But there's a difference between going, let's say, 5 for 25 compared to 5 for 10. Why'd you stop shooting? Jalen Green gets into this thing where his offense dictates his mood. If he's not scoring, he's just not in it. That's not what a star does. Again, and that's not even a shot at Dillon Brooks, but he's not a star. You should not finish a game even if the outcome was still the same, and Steph Curry finished with 3 points, they would kill him. Obviously, it wouldn't be as bad because Golden State would have won, but still. Jalen Green. And by no way, shape, or form am I only blaming this on Jalen Green. But what I'm saying is, it was evident that the Rockets they needed Jalen Green to be the star that they view him as. And while Fred VanVleet had a great game, had a great series, I'm almost certain when you talk about the physicality that the Houston Rockets went into every game with, because let's not get it twisted. The Houston Rockets were the much more physical team than the Golden State Warriors. The only reason why a lot of people, including myself, pick Golden State to beat the Houston Rockets is because of experience, and they have the best player in the series in Steph Curry. And the second best player in the series in Jimmy Butler. Outside of that, everything was technically in the Houston Rockets' favor. Even in the series. Do you know how many games where Pods didn't do anything or Buddy Hield didn't do anything? Kuminga didn't play most of the series, 90% of the series. But one player on the Houston Rockets stepped up offensively, consistently in Fred VanVleet, while the person that they paid like a star, that they view as a star, and Jalen Green did not. Before we move on, I'm also not saying that they should look to move Jalen Green, because I think that there's not a lot of patience when we talk about the NBA these days. There's not a lot of time to allow players to develop, because things move so fast. Drafts happen every year. Hell, next week, the lottery's there. And with the lottery, most teams that are, actually all the teams that are not in the playoffs anymore, now focus on next season. So teams, they don't have the time. They don't have the patience to wait for development. Lou Williams says something. He was like, what if the Lakers just didn't care and stopped developing a young Kobe? Because Kobe wasn't great his first, 1 or 2 years. Now, I'm not saying that Jalen Green is or should be a finished piece or you should let him go, but I'm saying you had an opportunity to show that, at least at this point, I am a star, and you didn't perform. Which is why now I don't think he should be replaced. I don't think they should let him go. But which is why now they're looking and saying, yo, we need a closer. We need a number one scoring option. Think about that. Jalen Green's primary input is score. And now they're talking about, yeah, we need somebody else. And Jalen Green did it to himself. I don't think they should move him. I think Houston's a great place for him. I think he is very important to that team. I don't think they should just give up on Jalen Green. But I will say that Jalen Green has not shown that he can be the consistent star that they need. So, speaking of star, a while ago, I, on this podcast, talked about James Harden. And I said, James Harden is the enigma of the NBA. James Harden is the thing that just can't be quantified. He's the player that doesn't have a description at the time. I believe he was still with the Houston Rockets. He was putting up 60-point triple doubles. He was, at that time, there wasn't many offensive players in the history of the game that was on the same level as Houston Rockets James Harden. And because James Harden was so good, because James Harden was putting out prolific performances, the conversation started to creep in as to who is better between someone like a James Harden and someone like a Dwayne Wade. And I believe I said that James Harden is a far better offensive player than Dwayne Wade, but Dwayne Wade is better than him in everything else. But that doesn't take away from the greatness of James Harden. You can argue that he's a top 5. Some would even say top 4 point or shooting guards of all time. But one of the knocks on James Harden at that time was not just playoff performances and how drastically different they are from his regular season performances, but his playoff performances in big games, in closeout games. Mind you, when I said this was before the epic showdowns between, Golden State when they had KD and Clay and Steph, and this was before all that. I'll say this. Kind of like Jalen Green, in no way, shape, or form am I solely blaming James Harden for the Clippers essentially getting destroyed. In fact, first losing a series lead and then getting destroyed in Game 7 by the Denver Nuggets, getting them bounced out the playoffs. I'm not saying that it's James Harden's fault. I'm not saying that it's solely James Harden's fault. But when I called him the Enigma years and years ago, I've been doing this for about 6.5 years at this point, I believe. Maybe 6. Yeah, I think I started in 2019. So, yeah. When I said that, we didn't have as much data as we do now when it comes to James Harden in critical games. We didn't have the Brooklyn Nets James Harden. We didn't have the Philadelphia 76ers James Harden. And we surely didn't have the LA Clippers James Harden. Also, like Jalen Green, I said that stars are critiqued differently. Do you want to know why the conversation feels different when we talk about someone like James Harden compared to someone like Kawhi Leonard? Because if you look at that game, in fact, give me a second, guys. I'm gonna look at something really quick. I'm gonna show you guys or tell you guys what's his name? What Kawhi Leonard did in that Game 7. Because they beat the Clippers 120-101. In that Game 7, Kawhi Leonard had 22 points, 6 for 13, 8 for 9. Not a terrible game, not a bad game, He was cool. In fact, in this series, Kawhi Leonard has been their best player, but he's been just okay. On Kawhi Leonard standards, he's good. But James Harden, in that game 7, had 7 points, played 35 minutes, did have 13 assists, 1 block, 2 assists. I'm sorry, he had 14. No. 1 block, 2 turnovers, 2 steals. Had a plus minus of negative 29. Yes, Kawhi Leonard had 22 points, but he didn't play that good, especially on the defense side of the ball, especially when we know how good Kawhi Leonard can play. But there's a reason why you're hearing the discord around this game be much different for James Harden than it is Kawhi Leonard. Not just because Kawhi Leonard scored more points, but Kawhi Leonard has shown time and time again, whether in San Antonio, whether in Toronto, and even with the Clippers to a certain extent, he has shown the ability to rise up in situations like a clutch game or Game 7. He has 2 championships. He has 2 Finals MVPs. As great as James Harden is, the only thing that he has is an MVP and a scoring title. In fact, we talk about legacy talk sometimes in this podcast, and if you just cut off James Harden's regular seasons, I understand the argument between someone like a Dwayne Wade and a James Harden. In fact, there would be no argument. James Harden would probably be the 3rd best shooting guard of all time if you just cut that regular season. But also, if you just cut the playoffs, James Harden's a completely different player. For the worst. I'm not saying that, at this point, I'm not saying that James Harden has to win a championship. I think James Harden, at this point of his career, is probably going to fall into that category of being great and never winning. But let's not get it twisted. That Game 7 was a legacy game for James Harden. It was a legacy game to show that, I know up to this point, I have not been good in closeout games. He's been god-awful, actually, in closeout games. In fact, I don't remember the last closeout game he's won. On top of that, I don't remember the last closeout game. Remember, you can say, remember during the Houston Rockets where they overcame a 3-1 or overcame a 1-3 deficit to the Clippers? Yeah, but I also remember that they went on a huge run with James Harden on the bench because he was so bad. Or you can talk about how bad he was when he was with the Houston Rockets against the Spurs, and the infamous block or the famous block that Manu Ginobili had on James Harden. Or you can talk about the multiple series lost against the Golden State Warriors. In fact, I don't think James Harden has ever beat Steph Curry in a series. Maybe once, maybe. But I don't even think that's the case. I think Steph Curry is 5-0 against Houston in playoffs and series-wise. 4 of those 5 was James Harden was on them teams. Again, I'm not blaming the loss solely on James Harden. But what I am saying is, this is yet another situation where the team needs James Harden. You're needed, bro. And you, quite eloquently, some would even say on cue, find a way to have your worst game of the series. Let's back it up. You find a way to have your worst game of the season. What's crazy is depending on, I think the Clippers had a really good shot because of how James Harden was playing, because of how Kawhi Leonard was playing. I think they had a really good shot of possibly upsetting the Thunder. But I guess, in the great words of Kanye West, I guess we'll never know. But you know what we will know, though? This was yet another opportunity for James Harden to cement his playoff legacy, which, if we're really being honest, is not great. Again, if you cut playoff James Harden with regular season James Harden, they're completely different players. Completely different legacies are left. James Harden had an opportunity to really solidify himself I'm not going to say quiet the noise, but really show that no, this is the stuff that happened in the past or in the past. We're here. Game 7, this team needs me. They need me and Kawhi. There's no more Paul George. And you have 7 points in a game 7. And you lose by 19. Again, man. I said James Harden was the enigma of the NBA. And what's ironic about me saying that years ago is up to this point, maybe even more so now than it was before, that statement is true. Because it's almost unfathomable that somebody that's on the NBA 75 team, somebody that's going to go down as a first ballot Hall of Famer, somebody that's going to go down as one of the best offensive players the league has ever seen, someone that's going to go down as one of the best guards the league has ever seen, someone that could be in conversation as one of the best Houston Rocket players of all time, someone that won the Sixth Man of the Year, someone that's won an MVP. It's crazy that person is also the same person that has only been to one NBA Finals. The same person that has a losing record in closeout games. And it's a person that, when the lights are the brightest, when your team, because most of those was his team, when they needed you the most, again, in Brooklyn, with KD, in Philly, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, in LA, you had Paul George. Now you still have Kawhi. James Harden finds a way to have his worst games. The enigma of the NBA. As unfortunate as it is, this was a legacy game. And the only thing you did was solidify your playoff legacy and how infamous it really is. But hey, shout out. Let's move forward. I am away. Meaning, I usually record Tuesday afternoon, late Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, and get an episode out on Wednesday. Well, Tuesday and Wednesday this week, I am gone. So when you're hearing this, I am out for work. So I'm recording this early. I'm recording this Monday evening. And so with that, I know game 1 of the second round between the Knicks and the Celtics hasn't happened yet. Neither has the game 1 with Denver and the Thunder. I'm going to give my series predictions on that. But the game 1 that has happened that I want to talk about is the Pacers going into Cleveland and beating the number 1 seed in the East in game 1. Now, I think that when you're the number 1 seed and you ultimately lose, there's a level of panic that kind of sets over a lot of things. There's a level of panic that's like, wait, what's going on? You're the number 1 seed. You're losing to the 3 seed. You shouldn't lose. And rightfully so. And I will give credit where credit is due, because I was a tad bit disrespectful when I was talking about when I gave my series predictions with the Bucks and Pacers, and I just didn't think the Pacers were that good of a team. I was incredibly wrong. This team, this team isn't the best defensive team. That I was true about. But this is one of the best offensive teams in basketball, led by Tyrese Halliburton, Nesmith, Nembhard, Pascal Siakam. Like, this team can score. TJ McConnell. This team can score in bunches. And that was one of the problems that the Bucks had with this team. They just could not keep up offensively, and their defense, they couldn't keep up. And I do believe that there is, I don't have the stats in front of me. But I do believe that there is a correlation between a team that sits the longest compared to a team that's essentially rolling into the next round. I think the team that is hotter has an advantage. I'm not saying they have an advantage on the whole series, but at least game 1. So I will say this. There has been a level of, let's wait and see, when we talk about this Cleveland Cavaliers team. There's a reason why not many people have them at least not even make it to the NBA Finals. As a number 1 seed, they have them pretty much losing in the Eastern Conference Finals. While this team is good, this team is deep, this team has all the possibilities to be that team, it's still a wait and see. Because we've seen teams that Donovan Mitchell has been on that's been great, that's kind of fizzled out in the playoffs. We've seen this Cavaliers team be really good and lose to a Knicks, last year. Game 1, I'm not going to take much out of game 1. I will give the Pacers their credit. They came in hot. They didn't have the same energy for this Cleveland Cavaliers team that they had for the Bucks team, understandably so. But they came laser focused. They were incredible on the offensive side of the ball. Pascal Siakam was really good. They really minimized the defensive pressure that someone like an Evan Mobley and a Jared Allen really bring. And they forced Donovan Mitchell to guard, and he wasn't really able to do that consistently. And on top of that, he struggled offensively as well. Even though they were down big and they had a huge comeback and everything, that was great. But especially when I think Garland missed his 3rd straight game, I'm not going to have a series. I don't think the series over with the Pacers winning game 1. What I will say is this, though. Game 2 is going to be big. And if you don't have Darius Garland, the Cavaliers don't have another player outside of Donovan Mitchell that can put the ball on the ground and really create their own shot if Darius Garland does not play. Darius Garland, that's kind of I'm not gonna say a cheat code, but that's kind of a superpower when we talk about how good a team can be. When you have a player that can alleviate the offensive workload by your best player, meaning this. You see how different Golden State and Steph Curry looks with Jimmy Butler. Because while no, Jimmy Butler is not on the same level offensively as Steph Curry, it forces defenses have to worry about Jimmy Butler. So it kind of opens up the floor for your best player. Jimmy Butler can put the ball on the ground and get to the basket and get to a jump shot and get to, he's able to create. When you have two players that create on the same volume as a Darius Garland and a Donovan Mitchell, that just, But so when you don't have that, it kind of it helps the defense. It helps the other team because it's like, all right, we just got to focus on their jump shooters and not letting Donovan Mitchell beat us. So I'm not going to take any grand conclusions by game one. I think the Pacers played incredible. I think they were a little hotter because I think they didn't sit as long as the Cleveland Cavaliers sat, seeing as though the Cavaliers swept the Heat. I think game two is going to tell a lot. I'm going to say Cavaliers are going to win this in 6. I'm going to just give that prediction now. But that's obviously predicated on you have a healthy Donovan Mitchell. You have a healthy Darius Garland. And apparently Darius Garland's toe is still still bothering him. So we'll see. Shout out. Yeah, I say Cavaliers in 6, but I'm not confident because the way Nembhard is putting the ball on the ground and shooting. The Pacers don't have anybody outside of Donovan or Tyrese Halliburton that can really create their own shot. Nembhard has been really good, but he hasn't been consistent all year. The thing that they're doing is they're just running. They're doing what the Rockets should have continued to do with against Golden State. They're just running. They don't stop. And that can cause problems for the Cavs, but I think game 2 is going to tell a lot more than game 1, but shout out to the Pacers for beating them game 1. Again, as I'm recording this, game 1 of the Knicks and Celtics series hasn't happened yet. But I was very vocal. You can go watch last episode. You can probably go watch the clips that I put out. I was very vocal in saying that while I congratulate the New York Knicks for beating the Pistons in round 1, I think that the Pistons were the better team. They demonstrated more consistency. They also demonstrated that they're not really good at closing games and maintaining leads. But that's not me crapping on the Knicks. That's just me saying the Knicks were really good. They just, I think the Pistons were better. And I've talked about at nauseum on this podcast about how important the regular season is when we talk about developing habits. So I'm not going to go down that road. But what I will say is this. The Knicks have not shown the ability. Not this season, not last season. They have not shown the ability to consistently beat the Celtics. I don't think they beat the Celtics once this year. And the biggest reason for that is the Celtics is probably the best team in basketball at creating mismatches. That's why I'm so interested to see what this team looks like next year, because you're hearing that maybe someone like a Drew Holiday might not be on this team again because this team is about to get really expensive, or someone like Porzingis. The Celtics is probably the best team in basketball at creating mismatches, at cross matches. Meaning it's never going to be the point guard is going to guard the point guard. The shooting guard is going to guard the shooting guard. What they do is because they're so tall and because that they're all really good at defense, they're able to cross defend. Meaning you're able to put your best player, or you're able to put, no matter where, between the 1 and the 4. Jrue Holiday is probably their best on-ball defender. You can put Jrue Holiday on anybody between Jalen Brunson to Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby. What they're going to try to do is they're going to try, and they do a great job at it just because of their movement, because of, like I said, cross matchup. They do a great job at hunting mismatches, meaning they will find a way to get someone like a Jalen Brunson, someone like a Karl-Anthony Towns. They will find a way to get Jason Tatum on them. And if Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown get on them, it's curtains. As good as they were first round, I don't see this series going past 5 games. Because on top of that, depth doesn't play that much a part in the playoffs because coaches like to shrink their rotation. However, that is a superpower for the Celtics. You're able to go and get someone off the bench like a Peyton Pritchard who just won 6th Man of the Year. You're able to get someone like Hauser. That is a cheat code if I've ever seen one. So that's why they're the best, by far the best 3-point shooting team this year, and historically on that, one of the best. And those lulls, because there were a lot of lulls in the Pistons Knicks series where the Knicks would go 4 or 5 minutes without scoring, or they'll go, Jalen Brunson himself is on an 8-0 run because Karl-Anthony Towns would just disappear. That cannot happen against the Celtics, or you will get blown off the floor. And if you're just doing matchup to matchup, I don't see how this Knicks team can keep up offensively with this Celtics team. That's the reason why people like Stephen A. Smith talking about, I'd be proud of this if they take them to 6. Because he knows they've been around a lot of basketball. I'm not saying his word is law. I'm not saying any analyst's word is law. But what I'm saying is we'll see. Because what I've seen, I don't think I don't think that this team, the Knicks, can keep up, both offensively or defensively, with the Celtics when they play their best. So we will see. I have the Celtics in 5. And I think this, again, disclaimer, I am recording this Monday because I'm going to be away on work for Tuesday and Wednesday, so I don't know the outcome of Game 1. But this series is fascinating. I think that this and the Minnesota Timberwolves and Warriors series is going to be the best second-round series by far. Because this Denver team, a team where Nikola Jokic is playing to the level that he can play. Jamal Murray is playing to the level that we've seen him in, that his contract warrants. Aaron Gordon playing really good. Russell Westbrook playing really good. This Denver team can win it all. This is the team that I think that fans, the media, I think people were waiting for this Denver Nuggets team to show up all season, and it didn't show up until now, until playing against the Clippers. Because again, if you get that Jamal Murray, that was always the thing. We knew what we're going to get. You know what you're going to get from the stars. You know what you're going to get from Nikola Jokic. What are we going to get from Jamal Murray? Jamal Murray has been a roller coaster ride actually, it's been like 2 years. the Thunder are a really good team. When you have presumably the MVP of this year in Shai Gilgeous, they're probably the deepest team in basketball. They're also the youngest. But we saw in the regular season. Obviously, the regular season doesn't matter as far as matchups to a certain extent. But we saw there's nobody in the NBA that has an answer for Nikola Jokic. Not a one. Zubac probably played the best. They lost. But on the contrary, nobody on the Denver Nuggets has an answer for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander when he got the ball rolling. It's so fascinating because both of these teams, I think, right now are rounding into the form, or no, not rounding. They've rounded into the form that we thought they would be all year. Now, the difference is the Thunder have been that all year, while the Denver Nuggets have not. But when you're getting a Jamal Murray that plays this good, when you're getting a Nikola Jokic, Russell Westbrook's hitting threes. I think he shot like 40% from three last series. Now, yes, he does have some boneheaded moves, but that's the Russell Westbrook experience. Shouts out to my man Kofi. He is the ultimate. Kofi said it, not me. He is the ultimate Super Mario box. This series to me is going to if this Denver Nuggets team continues to play the way they're playing, I don't see how this Oklahoma City Thunder team beats them, just because of their sheer size and defense. And obviously they don't have anyone, not Chet, not Isaiah Hartenstein, nobody for Nikola Jokic. On the contrary, though, I know we haven't seen the Thunder play in a while, but if they play like they did against the Grizzlies, everyone hitting, that is the Achilles heel for the Thunder. They don't have consistent three-point shooting. While Isaiah Joe is really good, Wiggins is cool, they don't have a consistent three-point shooter. And that could come back to bite them in the clip against Denver. But just because I'm gonna go Thunder in 7. I think that's how good that this series can be, and I think kind of like last series, this series is going to be dependent on and be on the shoulders of someone like a Jamal Murray. Not saying he has to be the best player, but he has to play to the best of his ability. If he does that, I don't see how this Oklahoma City Thunder team beats them. Not 4 out of 7 times. I'll say that. So, but we will see. I have Thunder in 7 because Thunder, they're a deep team. They can, because you still have Lou Dort, and we'll see. Because defensively, outside of Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers don't have someone on the same level defensively as Lou Dort. So we'll see if Jamal Murray can really handle that type of pressure. So we'll see. I got Thunder in 7. Lastly, before we go, man, boxing is in a tough place right now, man. I could be wrong. I'm not the biggest boxing advocate in a sense of it's enjoyable, but it's not like I'm looking for it all the time. It's But the fact that there are huge names that just boxed over the weekend, and if you're not really tapped into the boxing world, you would have never known. Rolly Romero beat Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia, he's kind of like the Kanye of boxing right now. You don't know what you're going to get from him. But we do know that the last time we saw him fight, he beat Devin Haney. Now, that apparently he has some PEDs or something. I don't know, but they revoked his win. But still, we all saw it. But he goes in and loses to Rolly Romero, who he's a decent fighter. He's pretty cool, but a lot of people thought he wasn't necessarily on the same level as Ryan Garcia, at least to this point. But I really want to end this and talk about Devin Haney. First of all, shout out to Rolly Romero for beating Ryan Garcia. I'm not taking away from your fight. I'm not taking away from your win. That was a good win. Again, you were the underdog and you won. Shout out to you. But I want to talk about Devin Haney for a second. And he is kind of the poster child of when I'm saying that boxing is in a tough place right now. Because while he wasn't the main event, someone that has the stature, has the name of Devin Haney Jr., you'd think that there'd be a more of a buzz, more of a attraction around his name. Obviously, once they revoked the Garcia win, the man went into this, I believe, 31-0. Again, we know that there was a 1 there, but and the fact that him and what's the dude's name he fought? He fought Jose Ramirez. The fact that neither one of them landed more than 100. Neither one of them landed 100 punches. It's like, I get it. Obviously, somebody that is not a boxer, somebody that will probably get their ass whooped if I ever stood around. I understand that boxing is a different level of fighting compared to something like street fighting. There's a different level of focus. There's a different level of technique that you need. I get it. Shit, I don't know if I can fight. I ain't been in a fight in years, so I don't even know if I still have that. But what I do know is this. As a consumer, as someone that's watching, and as someone that listens to other people that have been boxers and that have, are cut from that ilk, say the same thing that I'm feeling, I kind of feel validated. When you hear Mike Tyson pretty much say, the fight was boring. He didn't really do anything. He was good, but what did Mike Tyson say verbatim? He said, Danny did his thing tonight. It was flat, but it was very Haney. But it was because Haney shut him out. That's why he wasn't a match at all. Don't get me wrong, Devin Haney is good, but this is not the first boring fight that we've seen from him. So, again, I'm never going to say what he should or shouldn't do in the boxing ring, but when you go the distance and you don't even land 100 punches, neither you or Jose Ramirez, I don't know how you can call that box office. But there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. For all my YouTube watchers, listeners, please, please, please continue to support, continue to follow, continue to subscribe. If you know someone that isn't subscribed, please send it to them so they can subscribe. It means so much to me. I appreciate you guys. Please, please, all my YouTube watchers, please subscribe. It means so much. I'm trying to grow the podcast as much as possible, and I can't do it without you guys. For my DSP listeners, that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, whatever DSP suits your fancy, and wherever you're hearing this luscious voice. If you're not subscribed, if you're not following, please do so if you like the content. I appreciate, again, no platform is bigger than the other. I'm trying to grow unilaterally, and it would mean a lot to me if you spread the word, and I can't grow without you guys. So please, please subscribe. All my social media people, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, please follow, please subscribe. That's probably the quickest way to get to me. We can go back and forth. We can debate. Just keep it respectful. And I don't mind going back and forth. I don't mind commenting. It just means that A, you're listening to me. B, you have an opinion. And C, you want me to know your opinion. So, and I appreciate all of them. So, again, all my social media platforms, please, please, please subscribe. It means a lot. Until next time, much love.